The chandeliers sparkled like captured starlight across the grand ballroom. Margaret stood near the refreshment table, one hand resting protectively on her rounded belly. At 7 months pregnant, she felt out of place among the elegant crowd at her husband's company gala. Robert looked handsome in his navy tuxedo, moving through the room with easy confidence. He was up for a major promotion tonight. Margaret had come to support him, despite feeling exhausted and self-conscious in her simple cream maternity dress and borrowed cardigan. She watched him laugh with colleagues, his charm on full display. This was his world now. She barely recognized the man she'd married 5 years ago, the one who'd promised that love mattered more than money. Margaret sipped her water and tried to blend into the background. She'd grown up differently than these people, though no one here knew that. She'd learned long ago that wealth often brought more problems than solutions. Then she saw her, Vanessa Sterling from Robert's office. Stunning in a deep red gown that hugged every curve, platinum hair styled to perfection. Margaret had met her once at a company picnic. Something about the way Vanessa had looked at Robert that day had made Margaret's stomach turn. Now Vanessa was walking directly toward her, carrying something gold and silky. A shirt. Her smile was bright and sharp as a knife. "Margaret, darling," Vanessa's voice carried across the nearby conversations. "I've been looking everywhere. For you." People began to turn and watch. "I wanted to personally give you this." Vanessa held up the gold shirt with exaggerated care. "Robert mentioned you've been struggling financially, what with the baby coming and all. I thought you could use something nice to wear. It's gently used, but still quite lovely." The words landed like slaps. Margaret felt the heat rise in her cheeks as guests nearby fell silent, watching. "He told me how hard it's been," Vanessa continued, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Living in that tiny apartment, worrying about bills. Such a shame when a woman in your condition has to stress about money." Margaret saw Robert across the room. He'd heard. Their eyes met for just a moment before he looked away, pretending to be engaged in conversation. He looked away. That moment told Margaret everything she needed to know. "So I gathered some things I don't wear anymore." Vanessa pressed the shirt toward her. "Charity, you know. We all have to help those less fortunate." The ballroom felt impossibly quiet. Margaret's hands trembled as she touched her belly, feeling their baby move. She thought of all the nights Robert had come home late, the unexplained expenses, the growing distance between them. "That's very thoughtful," Margaret said quietly, not taking the shirt. Vanessa's smile faltered slightly. She'd expected tears, perhaps, or anger. Not this calm dignity. Actually, a new voice cut through the tension. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." An older gentleman in an impeccable suit approached. Margaret's heart sank. She recognized him immediately. Lawrence Whitmore, her father's oldest friend and the executor of her family's estate. "No, please," Margaret whispered, but Lawrence was already speaking. "This young woman," Lawrence gestured to Margaret, "is Margaret Ashford, daughter of the late Jonathan Ashford." Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. The Ashford name meant something in this city. Jonathan Ashford had built a technology empire worth billions before his death 2 years ago. Margaret inherited her father's entire estate, Lawrence continued, his voice hard, "which makes her one of the wealthiest individuals in this room. She chose to keep her maiden name and her inheritance private, a decision I'm now questioning." Vanessa's face went white. The gold shirt slipped from her fingers. Robert was pushing through the crowd now, his face a mixture of shock and calculation. "Margaret," he started. But she held up her hand. "You looked away," she said softly, but everyone heard. "When she humiliated me, you looked away." "I didn't know," Robert stammered. "You never told me about the money." "I told you I loved you," Margaret replied. "I told you I'd stand by your side through anything. I wore this borrowed cardigan and this simple dress because I wanted to see if you'd stand by mine." She turned to Lawrence. "Please arrange for my things to be moved from the apartment. All of them." "Margaret, wait," Robert grabbed her arm. "We can talk about this. The baby," Margaret said, pulling free, "will grow up knowing that dignity and character matter more than money." that true love doesn't look away when things get difficult. She walked toward the ballroom exit, her head high despite the tears threatening to fall. The crowd parted for her like water. Vanessa stood frozen, the gold shirt at her feet like a fallen flag. In the lobby, Lawrence caught up with Margaret. "I'm sorry I intervened. I know you wanted privacy." "No," Margaret said, wiping her eyes. "You showed me the truth. Sometimes the greatest gift is seeing people clearly." 6 months later, Margaret sat in the nursery of her new home, holding her daughter. Sarah had her mother's eyes and, Margaret hoped, her grandfather's kind heart. The divorce had been quick and quiet. Robert had tried to fight for half the estate before his lawyers explained prenuptial agreements. Vanessa had resigned from the company shortly after, their affair exposed. Margaret had established a foundation in her father's name, helping pregnant women facing financial hardship. Real help, with dignity and respect. She'd also learned something important. Hiding who she was hadn't protected her heart. It had only delayed the inevitable truth that character reveals itself when tested. As Sarah yawned and nestled closer, Margaret whispered, "Your grandfather taught me that wealth is a responsibility, not an identity. I'll teach you the same, but I'll also teach you to never diminish yourself to test someone else's love. You are worth more than that." Through the window, the city lights twinkled like the chandeliers from that ballroom. But here, holding her daughter, Margaret felt something those lights had never given her. Peace. Sometimes the cruelest moments reveal the kindest truths. Sometimes humiliation is actually liberation in disguise. And sometimes the golden shirt on the floor is really a golden opportunity to walk away. If this story moved you, please like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories about finding strength in unexpected places. And comment below, have you ever discovered your true worth in a moment of hardship? Your story might inspire someone today.